Hi guys.
Hello guys.
This is Andy.
Hello, I'm Andy.
And I'm Gandhi, and we're here as part of the EGP Learning Podcast to talk to you as part of our HTN Digital Week about the technology to enhance your CPD collection. Hope you enjoy the show, and yeah, we're here to answer your questions as well. So Andy, I think you're on the comms, aren't you?
I am, yeah. So I'm sat here, I'm plugged in watching the feed. If you're watching this at home, you'll find that there's a box on the right hand side where you can type comments in, and it'll generate a comment feed with your own comments and other people watching. I'm going to be monitoring that. If people ask a question, if you want to ask a question, if you want to make a point, then I can interrupt Gandhi, interrupt the room, and we can discuss whatever you've raised. So trying to be interactive.
Yeah. So we're just going to switch over to the slides so you guys can see what we're talking about today. And effectively, so this is our session talking about the technology that you can use to enhance your CPD collection for your appraisal, revalidation, that kind of stuff, and some simple hints and tips that we've got for you to hopefully make that process a little bit easier and stuff.
When was your last appraisal, Gandhi?
So mine happens in September because it's meant to be my birth month, but they delayed it slightly. So instead of being in July, it's now in September.
Okay, mine was this Monday. That's just gone. So I've just been through the process. So
unfortunately, Andy's missed out on some of the hints and tips and stuff.
But I can plan the whole of next year.
Yeah, so you can set it right and go for it forward, knowing that you'll be all sorted for next year. So effectively in this session, we're going to cover 5 main areas. So a brief summary of the hardware and software kind of things that you can use to try and help your CPD collection. I'm going to give you a comprehensive list of clinical resources that you can look at. And then we're going to also look at how you can try and create your own system for collecting CPD. And then combine that with some advanced methods in case you're already doing some of this, just to try and make that whole process a little bit more easier. And then finally, just some hints and tips from both of us of how you can make it a little bit more manageable and stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So Gandhi, do you always end up with do you have a mad rush at the end with appraisal? Are you one of those people?
Or are you actually, I've got to the point where I normally need a day just at the end, but normally that day is a combination of CPD and other kind of stuff and things. But yeah, it works quite well effectively.
Yeah, it's interesting because I find I'm a mad rush person, but you can, even if you accept and embrace that, if you do things throughout the year so that you create a digital footprint of what you're doing, it can make that mad dash easy. So I think we've got tips to suit all styles of learners and appraisal prepparees.
Yeah. And effectively, so one of the things I always like to look at with these sessions is how confident are you using tech resources? So at the start, where would you put yourself? Would you be a technophile, so ridiculously confident and happy with what you're doing? Tech happy, so maybe some things to learn, but still generally quite happy using the tech and that kind of thing. Tech curious, wanting to learn a little bit more about how to use it. Tech shy, so not really confident and not really keen on using technology to a significant level, or an absolute Luddite who doesn't want to use technology whatsoever. And I guess one of the key things that we would hope through this session is that we can move you up this little ladder a little bit and make life a little bit easier for you guys. So we're going to give that a try.
Right.
So first thing we're going to talk about is the hardware, because I think it's important that you have a look at these kind of things when we're talking about them. So when we talk about hardware, there's various different things that people will use to help collect their CPD. Because we're GPs, I guess the easiest one would be the PC, because most of us sit in front of a computer when we're in our clinics and that kind of stuff, and that may be PC moving towards laptops potentially, and even tablets actually. I've heard
potentially, some systems.
So using those, but effectively it's the web browser that you end up using inevitably. Whilst you can put software onto the computers, obviously you've got to let your IT department let you do that, which may not sometimes be the easiest thing to do, but the browser is normally a place where you can get a lot of access and things. So make sure you use a decent browser. Not Internet Explorer 8.
Yeah.
So those of you who follow EGP Learning will know I hate Internet Explorer 8 with a passion, and the fact that
there are certain Java scripts that will only run in Internet Explorer 8 or whatever it is locally where we work. So that's what we still have to use on our PCs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It'll change one day.
Eventually. 5 years down the line, still haven't done it. We'll see. But yeah, if you want to do best tool though, for me, it would easily be the smartphone. So whatever you use, whether it's Android, whether it's Apple, it's portable, quick, easy to use, accessible anytime kind of thing. So easily a good kind of method of engaging with CPD. Not that dissimilar to the tablet, obviously a little bit larger, probably slightly less portable, but it has more applicable uses, particularly when it comes to typing and that kind of stuff. But various different things. One of the things I did mention on here though was about journals. So I'm completely aware that many people that don't like using tech to kind of do these kind of things, and they hate using, what the systems that organise themselves through a smartphone and that kind of stuff. So actually, for them, journals may be better. Having a decent journal. I actually still keep a journal even despite that. So I've actually brought it with me, guys. So this is mine. So it's my little ideas thing. Partly because I'm not really good at using technology to draw with. Andy's probably better at it than I am.
Yeah, some people like using journals, don't they? And it's not a generational thing. Well, as we've got a 20-year-old sort of university year in industry student with us at the moment at the practice, and he writes his to-do list in a journal. That's how he organises himself. And a lot of medical students turn up and they use less technology than I might expect them to. Yeah. So it's interesting.
So we're going to cover why in a second. But yeah.
Okay.
And when you illustrations of this, but effectively pens that you can write with that either use on a tablet like Andy's got here.
So this is probably not what you were driving at, perhaps.
It's one of them.
Okay. Yeah. Apple Pencil.
Yeah,
very good.
Or the other ones are the ones that you can actually write with, and it backdates. That then can transcribe that into a written format for you. So there's things like the Wacom pen and that kind of stuff that allow you to do that. I wouldn't personally. My handwriting is awful. I am the typical doctor. I have awful handwriting, hence why I like to text so much. But I guess one of the things to sometimes consider is whether the patient health records that we have can also help support your learning. So particularly if you are based purely in one practice and use one system, things like System 1, EMIS and that kind of stuff do have tools within them to help capture your learning, whether that's tasks, learning health records, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, good point.
If anybody wants to contact me about how to do that in more detail, I'm more than happy to talk about it, and it'll probably be in one of the future videos of the EGP Learning channel coming up. So we're just going to go back to the slides. There we go. So that's our hardware kind of stuff. And wrong screen. Sorry, guys.
Too many screens.
But whenever we talk about appraisal, revalidation, that kind of stuff, we have to talk about the toolkits that we actually use to keep all this information. So I guess wanting to ask the question to our viewers, which toolkits do you use? So we've got a selection of the more common ones up there. So
we'll give a moment to respond as we talk. So, but I'll identify myself as a clarity person. So was free for a period of time for people who had an RCGP prescription, so they kind of got me in their system. I got used to using it, and this year was the first year I had to pay for it actually. But it's all right. But I've never used anything else.
Okay, so effectively, there's three big players when we talk about toolkits in England. I think Scotland have their own toolkit, which name I can't remember. I think Wales also have a separate one that they use. But in England, the three big players, which is Clarity, GP Tools, and 14 Fish. And then there's a separate one, which is basically the MAG form, which is basically a smart PDF document that you can use. And we'll talk about the others in a second, effectively. But those are the main ones, kind of thing. And I guess I asked this question on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and similar to yourself, Andy. Unfortunately, I didn't put the picture up.
Ah, right.
I know.
You could have done the graph.
Yeah,
okay.
I've done it. So there's a short sample, but effectively, about 50% of people said they were Clarity. About majority of the others were 14 Fish. There are a few users of GP Tools and Mags after that. So I'd probably say about 50% of people do use Clarity and things.
Yeah.
This is kind of like my comparison of them. So if you're looking at what toolkit you might want to consider using, kind of these are looking at the various different resources and reasons to potentially use them. So just to go through them in brief, and particularly for Clarity, if you want, I've actually done a video on the EGP Learning YouTube channel that you can have a look at. There's a walk through the Clarity toolkit. I did that at the time because that's when my Clarity subscription finished. So I'm no longer with Clarity because, as Andy mentioned, I had it free as part of my RCGP membership. When that finished, I actually looked around for an alternative toolkit that was more suited to what I wanted to get out of it. So I don't use Clarity anymore. But effectively, Clarity cost is very variable depending on which particular level of subscription you go for. Their basic, if you're still an RCGP member, is £37.50, which is a discounted rate from their £60 per year. Or you can get their gold kind of membership, which also includes a lot of learning tools and that kind of stuff for £120 a year.
It's an interesting company, isn't it? Because they also own NB Medical, the update course.
No, they don't.
Oh, they have a collaboration with them, I guess. I thought they did. Okay.
No. So it's a collaboration, but they don't own MD Medical. They do, however, own GPT-Net, which is their most recent acquisition, which can be quite a useful way of using Clarity to feed into directly your toolkit and appraisal and stuff.
Yeah, you can see what they're doing as a business, because you can record a significant event on GPT-Net in your practice if you use it for recording those, and you can link that to your appraisal, or you can attend an NB Medical event and sort of link that very easily. So clever kids, I suppose, in terms of how they're operating. They also seem to have acquired all of the users, or the majority of users, from the old RCGP tool as well, which is probably a clever move.
Yeah, so
clever move.
4 years ago, Clarity purchased the rights to the users of the RCGP toolkit, because they took over the management for it for the RCGP. Variety of reasons why that happened, but effectively it was to try and give the members a more effective toolkit. But obviously that led to them being the market leaders.
Hats off to them. Clever people. Hello, Clarity.
GP Tools is an independent kind of toolkit created by a GP for GPs. Really smart piece of software. I think in terms of what it does it quite well. Probably not aesthetically as nice as the other two, if I'm being honest. So there's potentially some way where they could look at adapting and stuff. But if you're looking for the most cost-effective toolkit, GP Tools, in terms of what it does and how it offers those features and stuff in terms of cost and stuff. 14 Fish is a really good toolkit, I have to admit. So it's not as cheap as GP Tools, probably cheaper than Clarity overall when you look at the kind of balance of things. But in terms of aesthetics, very nice, and has a lot of real good features in it. So the app is really good, has a learning platform behind it, which is actually cheaper than Clarity's when you combine it overall. And also has its own community of groups of kind of things, so you can create your own learning hub within it, kind of thing, as a practice or as a region, that kind of stuff. So something definitely to consider. I've put the GMC toolkit on there purely because there is a My GMC revalidation app, and I don't know how many people probably use it. I don't think it's specifically designed for general practice effectively, but it is something you can use. And then the mag form, as I mentioned, it's completely free. So if you want the cheapest option, this is the the cheapest.
People still use it, don't they? I know people who use that.
But effectively doesn't give you any of the benefits of having an online toolkit. If you were using the mag, one of the things tips I would give you is to stick it on a cloud platform, so then you can access it wherever you are. So sticking it into something like Dropbox or Google Cloud or iCloud, that kind of stuff. So then it's portable and accessible rather than stuck on your single computer back at home and stuff. We mentioned the others, so just a special mention to Digitalis. So this is a CPD app, effectively, that allows you to collect various different parts of information and stuff. It does link directly with Clarity. So we mentioned about Clarity having these kind of the collaborations kind of stuff, but is a really useful way of collecting your CPD kind of directly, and has taken over some of the other kind of things that we're going to mention shortly. As a route of doing that kind of stuff. Yeah,
you can collect things directly in there at the time you're doing them, reflect there and then, or do a little bit of reflection, and then when you're back on your desktop, it's linked into your Clarity account, so you can flesh things out back there. So I actually find that useful, the Digitalis app. It's good. Hopefully connecting with other tools in the near future.
Definitely. So I guess if you're to ask my opinion of the kind of toolkits, I like to give analogies, and the one I'm going to give is relating to phones. So if you're linking Clarity, so Clarity is probably like your Apple, effectively. If you want a toolkit that basically does the job and links in with everything else, but probably will cost you a little bit more in the long run, it'd be the Clarity toolkit. If you're after a toolkit that does everything that you need it to do, aesthetically quite easy to use and effective and that kind of stuff, that'd probably be 14 Fish, and that's more like an Android phone, so like your Samsung or your OnePlus, that kind of thing. If you're looking for a toolkit that in the background is probably the most effective and innovative and that kind of stuff, but may not aesthetically be the best one, that'd be your GP Tools, and that's probably more like a BlackBerry, if I'm being honest. So, not as up to date as some of the other kind of things, particularly aesthetically, but has real good grunt under it. And then if you want your mag,
is this your Nokia dumb phone?
Yeah. I'm afraid. More like your Nokia 3210 kind of thing. Does the job of being a phone, but
carry a pigeon,
anything else,
perhaps.
Unfortunately not. So guys, just to remind you, we are live. So Andy and Gandhi for the EGP Learning podcast.
But we have been live previously, so you can view what we were doing earlier in the day offline.
Yeah, so if you want to check out our other sessions, so our session on the top 5 GP apps that you may want to use, as well as our session on social media guidance for clinicians. Those are the links that you just need to type them into your browser and you'll be taken to them. And you will be able to obtain a CPD certificate of engagement by getting to the end of it and stuff.
I love that picture. That's good. That was me just before my appraisal that weekend. Yeah.
And me trying to educate him how to do it.
Yeah.
So guys, we talked about systems. So if you go back to our GP apps one, it's probably a really good one to have a look at, because we go into these in a little bit more detail. We'll talk about online notepads. So me and Andy actually ended up discussing some of these. We're not going to give you any spoilers as to which ones, but having a look at these kind of apps as a way of trying to collect all the information that you're doing and stuff. And you know, effectively, there's various different methods you can use. Evernote, OneNote, Google Docs is another one, and Google Keep. I know people found that really useful because it's quite a nice and simple app that they can use. But have a look at them, see what you think. I think in terms of effectiveness, having an online notepad that you can collect all the information from, really powerful, really effective.
Yeah. Well, what I find really useful, we might be moving on to tips later on, but having one thing, and I think something like Evernote or OneNote is good. So that's kind of a universal note-taking app. You can take, you can write things, you know, type notes. You can take pictures, scan documents in, things like that. It's really good to have in the or PC on your NHS work laptop. And if you try and create a digital footprint of what you're doing CPD wise, if you're at a meeting, if you're going somewhere, just log that you're there, take a photo of yourself there, collect some details, maybe collect your notes. And then if you are not organized, you don't go as far as putting that in your Digitalis app, it doesn't really matter, because when you're preparing for your appraisal at the end of the year, you were there, you can prove that you were there. Definitely take a photo of the certificate because you might lose it. And actually you can fairly quickly, you know, load everything up to Clarity there and then. So just pick something, have it with you all the time, create that digital footprint. That's what I find is really useful.
Definitely, and I echo everything Andy just said in terms of having an online notepad. It's the main reason I use it, particularly when you've got multiple roles. I think that's the real benefit, is when you're doing more than one thing, trying to have a different part of that kind of notepad for all your different roles, so that you can share them effectively, easily, and get access to it quickly as well. Andy mentioned earlier about people not using tech and preferring journals and that kind of stuff, and I wonder if it's because of this concept called bullet journaling. Have you heard of it, Andy?
So it's something that maybe Tim Ferriss does.
Okay.
Tim Ferriss, I listened to Tim Ferriss' podcast. I think he does it. I think he maybe even sort of pitches a company that make like the specific bullet journal. And sort of drives their sales a little bit as well. But anyway, tell us about it. I know it's very popular with high-performing individuals, it seems, as well.
So bullet journal is basically the concept of rapid coding with planning. So what that effectively means is that it's ideal for people who like lists. And there is definitely this concept that when you write something down, you're more likely to remember it because you've written it. So just that physical action of writing something down, you're more likely to have that memory of it doing and the importance that that has. So it's more important because you've written it. And the whole concept of bullet journaling is that you create your list and you use particular codes. And then as a result of those codes, you then transfer them across to your next day. And that's how you constantly recreate your to-do list of what you need to do. And part of that comes the regular review aspect of doing that. And it's kind of the concept that is instilled in a lot of productivity toolkits anyway. So even things like Get Things Done, all the other kind of toolkits that people would use.
OmniFocus, my favorite app.
It's based on the fact that
there's a daily review.
Constant review of your to-do list. And then creating the to-do list in the first place. And have a look at the links. So there is, in our show notes, there'll be a link to the bullet journal website that shows you how to do it. One of the reasons why bullet journaling, I think, has taken off so significantly, though, is that it allows a significant amount of creativity. So people can do habit trackers with them, you know, artistic designs. If you look on YouTube and type in bullet journals, some of the bullet journals that you will see are just beautiful. And they probably take more time than anything else to do, but it's that element of an avenue of creativity that people have, and then because they're putting that time into it, it's more likely than they stick with the list, perform it, that kind of stuff. And there's various different pieces of kit you can use. So I mean, for me, I don't bullet journals per se, but I have a system using mine. So this is a Dingbats journal.
What's in it, Gandhi? Can you? Is there anything that you would be comfortable showing on it? If it's no, that's fine. I just wondered if there was something.
There are a couple of those.
I'm curious.
Particularly those on social media remember me showing this. Actually,
how low tech is this for HTN Digital Week?
Where are we?
But Yeah,
find the right page that I'm happy to share.
That's right. In a world where there's so much technology, I sometimes find that there's still something nice about physical tools, you know, and you know, the book and the note journal has been popular for hundreds of years because it does its job very well. And we shouldn't automatically assume that technology will always do the job better.
Okay, so I could probably, oh yeah, here we go. So you guys are probably not going to read this because I mentioned I am a doctor and that's my writing, but effectively this is my list that I created for one of my upcoming blogs and stuff. And you know, I've got in here some, sorry, it's my other one. So this is my newer version, kind of mind map of all the different routes that GPs get information from. So I put this out on social media a while back to try and get an idea and collate that kind of stuff. And because I find using flowchart software not as easy.
It is not as easy, even just drawing on the iPad. It's not as easy as just drawing on a journal page. Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, I've migrated over to this one called Dingbats because I like the format and that and thing. My previous one I used to use was something called the Rocketbook Wave. So I've actually got one here. There's a reason why I've got it. I haven't told Andy this either. Because I wanted to surprise him with this one. So effectively, this is a type of a booklet that effectively you can reuse.
Okay.
So you can write on it and then wipe it clean, effectively by sticking in a microwave. So you use the heat.
Microwave.
Effectively heat and water and stuff. Full instructions are on the pad and stuff. And I use this for the past couple of years as a method of kind of like keeping my own mini bullet journal kind of thing. It uses a special kind of pen called a Frixion pen. So the way it works is when it's a pen you can actually rub out, which is really good when you keep making mistakes like I do.
I love this. I can imagine it's like you can note down all sorts of stuff and then you're like, oh no, like the man is coming to get me. Like put it in the microwave, burn the evidence. I think it's fantastic.
Well, the other cool thing about this is, so the other reason why this is quite a useful kind of toolkit is it comes with an app that you can then take a photo of the pages themselves and you can then send it to whichever other platforms you use directly. So you can send it to your Google Drive, you can send it to your Dropbox, you can send it to your Evernote, that kind of stuff, and then upload it. So I used to use this a lot to take a picture of the drawings I was doing, like flowcharts and that kind of stuff, and then upload it quickly and effectively using the app and stuff.
Evernote used to sell their own physical journals, didn't they?
Yeah.
I remember that when they used to do that. Maybe they still do. Oh, cool.
So yeah.
Good.
So the reason why I brought that, I'm going to offer that. So I've got another one for Andy. But I'm going to give that to one of our listeners as a prize. And effectively, all you have to do is say why you want one.
Ooh.
That's it. Dead easy. So I'm going to let Andy judge the comments when we get them. So we're not going to do it off the live session because I think there's not enough time for us to do that. But 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a look back at all the comments, and whoever's made the biggest pitch for that, we will then contact you and say, please make sure that you check that because we obviously need a way of contacting you and stuff. But yeah, I'm going to give that out for free.
Fantastic. Good.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are watching and want to get a hot copy of this. Okay, cool. Anyway, moving on. So let's go back to our slides. There we go. So talked about systems, ways of keeping up to date. So RSS feeds. Andy, do you know what they are?
Oh, I can't remember what it stands for, but and they're becoming a little less popular, I find. But on a lot of news sites and a lot of blogs, so you can set your WordPress blog to produce an RSS feed. It's sort of like it's like a news feed, isn't it? It's kind of like a summary. It allows another service to link into the news feed from that service and display it. So you can use a news reader like Feedly, Pocket, or Flipboard. Like Flipboard, I'm a fan of Flipboard.
So these kind of systems create your own personal magazine based off the feeds that you take. RSS stands for really simple syndication, and effectively brings those feeds to you. You're right, they are becoming slightly less out of focus, and that's because social media is taking over effectively. So platforms are now moving to using their social media outlets like Twitter and Facebook as their kind of feeds and stuff. But they are still rapidly used. And interestingly, in my journeys, I found a really useful one for general practice.
Oh, okay.
So it's the one that you can see highlighted there called News Now. If you have a look at the show notes, you'll be able to get the exact link and stuff for it. But it's GP-orientated information. And I don't know who's created this. I don't know how they've created it as well, because I've tried to do this myself for ages, not been successful. But it's out there, and you just simply need to put that into whatever app you want, or you can just go check the website on a regular basis, and it's got loads of GP-orientated articles from various different sources collated for you to have a read of.
Do you think is it a human curating it, do you think? Or is it an algorithm?
So the News Now platform is somebody's gone off and done it.
Cool.
And that feed is still live, it's still up to date, it's updated almost every day, so it is fresh information. So definitely feel free to have a look at it if you want, particularly primary care oriented.
In an automated world, that's certainly a value, a human filtering through things.
Next up, clinical resources.
I've seen this before.
So there's thousands of options out there, and I guess what I'm just going to show you simply is my kind of dashboard of things that I've created for myself. So interestingly, I created this because I hated Internet Explorer 6 so much.
Okay.
And that hate is now transmuted to Internet Explorer 8, which is what we're currently on. But back when I was a GP trainee, I couldn't open multiple tabs that get to the resources I wanted quickly enough. So I created a website that had all the common ones I would use that I can open quickly and effectively straight away within my consultation there, and that's how this transmuted into this resource section for the EGP learning site and stuff.
Cool.
As you can see, split up into various different things that you're more than welcome to check out, guys, and we've got a couple of new sections like pediatrics and resilience and stuff on there as well. But have a look at the resources and things. I'm not going to have time to go through all of them, but if you are looking for other kind of resources, particularly in terms of e-learning, I've just listed a few of the ones that I would commonly recommend. Any of those that speak out to you, Andy?
So Pulse, like Pulse magazine. Am I saying the right things?
Yeah, effectively. So, the most commonly used one I would probably say is the RCGP online learning environment, which is free to any member that's not an RCGP member. Really diverse subset. It's got various different categories, things like the EKU, so the essential knowledge updates and the essential knowledge challenges. Really good way of getting a kind of like a dump in terms of information into your mind of up-to-date guidance and that kind of stuff. And again, free if you're a member. Lots of e-learning platforms and that kind of stuff, and also some blended learning in terms of things like a substance misuse course, which combines both online and face-to-face courses to give you certification and stuff. EGP, so that's a slightly different platform. EGP Learning for Health, I think is what it's called. Okay. And that's an online nationally created database that's actually now run by the RCGP for them for the primary care aspects. Free to use, you just need to register and stuff, and then it's good. Particularly safeguarding's a really good one on that one.
Yeah, I was doing the safeguarding the other day.
BMJ, like you mentioned, has loads of really cool things. So if you're a BMA member, you'll have access to this, and lots of good quality information and things. Doctors.net as a platform has lots of e-learning packets, and that can link in with the emails, and you get certificates directly through that kind of stuff quickly and effectively. Univardis is the back end for GP notebooks, so a common tool that many of you would have used and potentially in the primary care in the UK. And actually has a lot of the BMJ learning packets as well, I tend to find in there. So whether they've got a historic deal to have some of the old stuff, I don't quite know, but it tends to be a lot of stuff there. Like you mentioned, the two newspapers, GP Online and Pulse, they have their own kind of e-learning packages. They are extra cost, so they're not free to use, although some of their modules are. Majority of them are behind a paywall and things that you may have to use. People learn more by video nowadays, and I guess I wanted to mention some interesting ones. So Webinar for GPs is a really interesting platform created by a GP to try and help support people's learnings, and worth having a look at. It does come at cost, but if you wanted regularly updated information on various different topics, it's quite a nice way of getting up to date with those kind of things. And Aurora Med, created by our friend Aurora.
Aurora. Yeah, he's out there. Hi, Aman. You're right.
All right. Yeah. It's for trainees. I think this is an amazing platform.
It's fantastic. I like I love his short videos that he does that are really short, kind of really shareable on social media. Yeah. I like his use of emojis. I think that's really creative and fun. Yeah. He's broken all the ground, hasn't he? And I think he's won some innovation. Yeah. Plaudits and awards.
And we actually interviewed him on our podcast this time last year. Back. So feel free to check that out, guys, and listen to his journey of how he's created this, what is really a useful platform for people to learn from and stuff. If you want to YouTube, so the two I probably mentioned, EGP Learning, I'm going to advocate it slightly because we offer lots of tips and resources in terms of how you want to use particularly health tech kind of things and stuff. And again, Aurora Med is on there as well, and quite a nice way of catching up on information. If you're talking about social learning, so maybe worth having a look at our video that we did earlier about social media use. Things like MedShare is potentially a really good tool to use, as well as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So yeah, lots of various ways that you can access those. And we covered that a little bit more in the social media guidance for clinicians video. So have a look at that for more information. Right, next slide. Yeah, I wasn't going to get far without mentioning podcasts. So for those of you that watch us, me and Andy obviously have a podcast. That's what it is. So the EGP Learning podcast.
Absolutely.
Podcast is probably one of the main ways I've started learning over the past year or so.
Yeah, podcasts, they've been revolutionary for me in the last 24 months. I mean, they've been around for ages, haven't they? But for some reason, they've just taken off for me. And I sort of blame Brexit a little bit for this, because normally I would listen to Radio 4 on my way to and back home from work. And I've just got fed up of hearing about Brexit all the time. It's the only thing that's happening, isn't it, in the world? Nothing else is going on. So I started to listen to podcasts in the car, all sorts of things. Great History of Rome podcasts, personal productivity, some medical podcasts. And it's a really great way to learn something and not feel depressed, it seems.
Certainly. I mean, I love them. I mean, we create a podcast, and I actually listen to podcasts about creating podcasts and stuff, which is one of it. But there are some really good primary care based resources if you want to listen to them. So we showed the list at the start. I'll show you again in a short while. But first and foremost, ours, EGP Learning podcast, if you want to learn about health technology and how to use tech as part of primary care and your learning and stuff, definitely feel free to subscribe to it. We're on all platforms: iTunes, Android, Spotify, YouTube and stuff. Big shout out to our colleagues over at 2GP Pods, so Shubs Pate,
Hi Shubs.
Who we did a recent episode, our Christmas episode with, in fact. Really interesting podcast that talks about the journeys of individuals and how they got to where they had. His recent one with Assistant Director of Primary Care, Nikki Kanani, was really, really good. Actually, I really like listening to that one, and quite innovative and particularly timely in terms of the long-term plan coming out and stuff.
I can see Innovate podcast there. I've heard there's a good editor of that one.
So I'll put the Innovate podcast up there. Andy's making reference to the fact that I'm one of the editors for that particular podcast, and our next one's due out in the spring of 2019, which, spoiler, I've got an interview with Helen Stokes-Lampard, chair of the RCGP, so feel free to listen to that one. But yeah, feel free to listen to it for other reasons as well. Really good summary of the Innovate journey.
Have you done the interview yet?
Yeah, done it already.
Okay, cool.
So that's a definite going in. I'm just trying to curate the other content and stuff for that one. Interestingly, the RCGP do quite a few different podcasts. So there's the Innovate one, and there's also the Essential Knowledge Update one.
That's true.
Really good packets of podcasts to find clinical information. So they go to specialists in those particular areas, based in primary care often, and then you get an update in terms of particular health conditions and that kind of stuff. So if you've got a particular learning need about conditions, so my most recent one I listened to was endometriosis. I'm not great when it comes to gynae health all the time. I have to check it.
Gandhi, has anyone done any? I don't know the answer to this. Has anyone done any research into how effective podcasts are for clinical learning? Because kind of a lot of these are they're sort of about the industry and about kind of judgments about the value of things and a bit of sort of medico-political type stuff. It seems to learning. I was just wondering.
Well, actually, quite a few of these are more about the educational aspects.
But
I don't know about the evidence behind it. I'll be honest. Maybe something for us to think about for our next podcast.
Actually, it'd be interesting because obviously, retention from just hearing shouldn't be that good. But there must be something about how you create the best podcast, and maybe you should encourage people to do some activities or do a series and revisit things as you go through. Maybe there's some work for us there. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Be worth looking at. And BMJ do a few different podcasts. So one of the ones that I mentioned is obviously their general BMJ ones, but the DTB, Drugs Therapeutic Board, actually produced a podcast that's hosted by the BMJ itself. really good podcast, looks at in terms of various medication updates and stuff. So one of their more recent episodes looked at the fact that IV antibiotics are not superior to oral antibiotics for the majority of conditions.
Oh, wow.
So the concept of admitting a patient purely for IV antibiotics because it may be better is actually wrong. So worth having a listen to. And similar to them, there's a Canadian version called the Best Science Medicine Podcast. It used to be under a different name, the Therapeutics Education Collaboration, I think it was. Really good evidence-based podcast. It's Canadian. Don't take anything away from it from that respect. So it's really popular podcast and stuff, and really effective in terms of showing evidence and information. And it's actually quite entertaining as well. Quite like it.
That's good. I think podcasts they're good when there's a little bit of entertainment there as well. Yeah.
So other ones worth mentioning that come up quite often is Inside Health, which is the Radio 4 health podcast.
There are some good BBC Radio 4 podcasts.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So and often features Margaret McCartney, who any of our GP colleagues will probably know is a national representative to council and a big advocate for overdiagnosis, preventing overdiagnosis and overtreatment and stuff, and really excellent speaker. So definitely worth listening to.
Yeah.
Other quick ones I'm going to mention. So General Practice Podcast by Ben. Ben, how have I forgotten your surname?
Oh no,
Gowland. Ben Gowland, who we've also done a podcast with in the past. Really good for looking at how to, like you said,
he's a practice manager, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's perhaps a little bit more the business side, dealing with patient journey, service, structure of organisations.
Definitely useful. And I find that listening to his every week is actually my Monday kind of routine.
He's good.
Just clinical information. The Good GP, which is by the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners.
Is it? I've not come across that. I'll check that out because there's that very good video that they've done called The Good GP. Search it on YouTube. That's very good. And
their podcast is just as good, I have to admit. Wow. I really do enjoy listening to it. And Primed podcast, the Primary Medicine podcast, which is again another Canadian one, very similar to The Good GP, good quality stuff, a little bit of banter, which is nice and stuff and makes it enjoyable. The last one I'm going to mention is the NASGP, National Association for Sessional GPs. They have a podcast they bring out every month or so. It does talk a lot more about their newsletter, so it's more around that kind of concept and the articles that they've had in that, but really good for sessional GPs in terms of content and articles and stuff. Cool. I'm going to go back to that list so you guys can have just a brief look at it before we go on to the next part. And as I mentioned, the links to all these podcasts are in the show notes. So if you want to have a look at them, do feel free to check them out. And that's curated for you guys, so hopefully you can get access to that really good resource and stuff. So guys, this is our live session on behalf of HTN in their digital week. So
I'm Andy, GP from Nottingham. I'm here with
Gandhi, also a GP in Nottingham. And this is our technology to enhance your CPD collection session. If you want to look back at some of our earlier ones, so looking at our top 5 GP apps, as well as social media guidance for clinicians, feel free to use the links there. And as we mentioned, you'll be able to get a CPD certificate of engagement by listening to the end and stuff and getting the links at that point. So how do we make a system? So what do you think, Andy? Because you're looking at the slides and stuff. This is kind of my way of creating a system.
Yeah, so I'm interested how you describe the system you've created and your thinking behind it. I guess I'll talk about my system as well. So I think the important thing is to have a system and an approach to CPD collection, because it makes completing your appraisal at the end of the year so much more effective if you've had a system throughout the year. When designing systems, I like to try and keep things simple, because I think that's how I will have the highest chance of sticking to it and generating good results. So what I tend to do, it's because the sort of things that I want to collect are, I want to collect some puns and dens. I want to collect a record of what happened at educational events that I attend or meetings that are relevant for CPD or activities that I've done. But I want to collect evidence that's rich, so pictures, certificates, written information about what's happened, because it's useful to refer to anyway, not just for CPD, but also some reflections made at the time. And those are the main things, and also reading and things. So I tend to use one, maybe two things. So I tend to use OneNote as my capture-all collection, everything apps. So Microsoft OneNote, it's available on your iPhone, your Android phone, your tablets,
Yep.
web interface, apps on iOS, Apple, apps on Windows. So it's everywhere. And you can very quickly collect a media-rich note about something. So that's really the main thing that I use to capture things. In fact, basically, that's what I do. That's what I do, Gandhi. I'll get my things from all sorts of different places. So I'll listen to podcasts. I'll do e-learning online. I will attend meetings, have conversations with colleagues, do reading. But I tend to just collect it on there. And I find, simple means effective for me.
Cool.
What do you do?
So similar to yourself, I have one central place that everything goes into. So I use my Evernote kind of thing to do that. And then I will use that to copy and paste into my e-learning toolkit, e-portfolio toolkit, sorry. I tend to have particular things I look for in terms of resource and stuff. So in terms of making your own system, one of the things I would always suggest that you look at using a browser, potentially a tabbed browser, so you can get those up at the start of your clinic kind of thing, accessible, easy, quickly, effectively, and that kind of stuff. And then with that, creating a system. So I get a lot of my learning actually from social media. Through cases I've discussed with people, or online, or that kind of format, or through things I've read and that kind of stuff. So using a hashtag that's yours. So one of the things I tend to recommend to a lot of people is use your initials, the year, and just tag CPD at the end of it. And it's uncommon to. That'd
be pretty unique.
It should be fairly unique in terms of what you can use. And then I can just search back when it comes time for me to update my toolkit. In terms of those kind of articles that I've come across about reading, whether I want to look down stuff. A lot of the portfolios do allow you to use booklet markers, so things that you can press and get that information direct. So that's an alternate way of doing it if you want to. And then the other thing I tend to recommend most people to do is just set aside a small amount of time every week just to do this. And it doesn't need to be a lot. 10, 15 minutes actually is all you potentially need, where you just set that time aside so that you are actually going off and just engaging with, whether it's the notepad or whether it's the e-portfolio itself, but just to review things that are going on. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have 10, 15 minutes to do anything. I'd argue most people do. And even if that's 10, 15 minutes to listen to a podcast or something like that, fine, go off and do that. But make sure that on a regular weekly basis, you've got a small amount of time set aside for just doing your portfolio kind of thing.
Actually, there's something to be said for regular review, actually, because what I find appraisers quite like is if you link a few things together. So I sort of try and give a few examples of that. So let's see, so it might go, okay, I've seen an elderly, frail patient that's complicated, and there's been some polypharmacy issues with them. And actually, I've heard about this thing called a comprehensive geriatric review, however that acronym goes. So actually, I'm going to read more about that. And then if you kind of come back later on in the year and you've done that, my appraiser tends to quite like doing that. And so actually, I'll arrange to spend time with a community geriatrician and do a visit with them in some of my free time. And that's really good. But you can only do that really if you're kind of just completing that cycle of thinking about what you're doing. So.
And the other part is make sure you index and tag the stuff that you're recording. So that's one of the reasons why I like Evernote so much, is because it allows you to do that. So you can tag it either into notebooks, like for CPD or e-learning, that kind of stuff, and then tag it with dermatology, orthopedics, and different specials. So you've got a cross-reference database kind of thing that's easily searchable. And then using some of the apps to try and help you and stuff. And we're just going to talk about those now. So I'm just going to go back to the slides. So this is kind of like what we described about my kind of system, how to make your own kind of system. And it's important, I think, that the system is individual. There's no point using somebody else's system because it may not work for you. You need to create your own. But these are hopefully some simple tools to help you create your own kind of system.
The other thing that I do is I will often email myself just with hashtag CPD as the subject line. Because I find on the smartphone, because we do a lot of our learning now, don't we, and reading on the smartphone, or actually we've listened to a podcast, actually there was something in that I want to reflect on. You kind of press that box with an arrow going out of, on iOS anyway, at least you do, and then you can export a link to that, and you can email it to yourself, and then you can search for those periodically at the end of the year, so that works well.
So we mentioned about, I want to talk about some of the apps that you can use, and these are kind of like my quick hint kind of tip apps kind of thing. Almost every single one of these has been covered in Tip Thursday. So if you guys want to have a detailed look at them, feel free to check out Tip Thursday. So EGP Learning Tip Thursday. First I mentioned is Cam Scanner. So I talked about this in one of our earlier webinars and stuff, but this is looking at basically a method of keeping a digital photo kind of record of all your certificates and thank you letters and all that kind of stuff. If you guys want to have a look at this, check out again the Tip Thursday video that goes through this in more detail. Having some sort of online storage, and I know some people get a bit apprehensive about Google and Dropbox and keeping things in there, and definitely wouldn't recommend keeping patient identifiable stuff in there.
Certainly don't do that.
Yeah, but actually having access to your appraisal and revalidation stuff at any point wherever you are sometimes can be useful, particularly the fact that it's backed up and you're unlikely therefore to lose it, which is really
and it's as secure as email. That's the way I tend to look at it, because it's the same sign-in procedure, and with Google Drive it's the same username and password essentially. So it's no less secure than email. So I email these things to myself, so that's how I justify being comfortable with the online storage options.
Tech to enhance the way that you work in primary care. So one thing I will sometimes recommend to people is using an app called ColorNote. So you can use any kind of notepad app, and there's a reason why I don't use Evernote for this, because I want a separate one for this pure function. But all the passwords and usernames that we have to keep within our clinical work, and having somewhere where you keep that. And then the benefit of this is that it has a secondary password that you have to use to access it. So I can lock particular notes that I'm keeping with a second password, so it's doubly secure. So obviously you've got to get into my phone first of all, which nowadays fingerprint recognition is a huge part of that. But then in addition, it's a second password that people need to use to get access to my passwords. Now you can obviously use password apps. There are specific apps to do that. But the reason why I like this is that it's things to differ. For example, my working as a partner, I've got another one for some of the other work I've been doing lately in terms of clinical stuff as logo and things. I've got another one for my EGP learning stuff, and various different sections. It's just a nice way of keeping things.
So it keeps notes or passwords?
So both.
Both. Okay.
Whatever it may be, but because it's all in one place.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this before. Having apps for one particular function. And I like to keep that separate from my Evernote because I don't want them in the same place. Yeah,
and I can completely dig that. Yeah. It's not always that everyone wants one app to do everything. No. Individual apps for individual functions. There's a place for that.
Definitely. In terms of apps, I want to use maybe BNF app, MedCal, that kind of stuff. Definitely worth having a look. And Vesma, I like as a tracking app for your mileage.
Okay, not come across that.
So it's a geolocation mileage tracker app that you basically have an extension you can start and stop, and it will use that to track the mileage that you're doing, and then you can send that as an Excel document to your accountant every year for quick and easy recording and stuff.
Do you guys use anything to share your location with the practice when you're doing home visits or anything like that? Because we've started talking about that in our practice.
I think there's a variety of different ways you can do that. Potentially Find My Phone is an easy way of doing that.
That's what we've been talking about.
So lone worker is obviously becoming more and more of an issue as time goes on, and particularly as GPs. We seem to be the only specialty that's happy to do lone working by ourselves. And things. But
go out 8 o'clock at night, some random place, no one knows I'm there.
No, maybe something to consider.
Don't target me, guys. People do know I'm there. Honest.
WhatsApp, we've talked about as a communication method in other webinars and stuff. Make sure you check out our top apps one, because you can guess it comes up and stuff. Another little tool I like to tell a lot of people about is something called Keybar. Have you heard of this website, Andy?
Keybar. You were showing me something before. Was it that?
No.
Oh, okay.
So,
that was
Keybar, Keybr, and it's basically maybe speak and teachers typing 2.0. So it's basically a method of trying to learn how to type quicker, but it gamifies it effectively. Really good, quick, simple way of trying to learn how to type quicker. Online as a game kind of thing, and I love it personally. It's improved my typing speed by about 30%.
And as GPs, we do a lot of typing. If you're not in a
one of the quickest ways of improving your productiveness is being able to type quicker. Imagine if you could save 20% of your typing time, that potentially over the day can rack up to about another 20 minutes or so that you've saved yourself potentially. And lastly, Orca. We like talking about Orca because they're a good resource in terms of looking for other kind of apps, because they validate them probably slightly better than we do.
More systematically and
more structure and
methodologically.
governance, I'd say.
Yeah.
But they focus more on patient-orientated apps compared to obviously we're looking at apps to try and support you as clinicians and stuff. So just to have a little look at that list again, guys, here you go. And then we're going to move on to remind you that this is a live session. And if you want to look at our other webinars and stuff, feel free to check out our one on the top 5 GP apps that will probably be quite relevant to that last slide, or our session on social media guidance.
Yeah, both were great, good fun, and check them out.
Yep. So last couple of tools. Dictation software is becoming a big thing at the moment. I think a lot of people are looking at various different tools to try and enhance dictation within primary care in particular.
Yeah. Do you use dictation at your practice?
I don't, because I can type as quick as I can talk, if I'm being honest. So I find that a bit more effective for me. I have a lot of my colleagues that are interested in this kind of tools and stuff. And
yeah. I never really learned to dictate properly, but as I was beginning to learn, I think I was appreciating the beauty of it. We have multiple screens now, so maybe it's less of an issue, but there was something about being able to speak while looking at, a letter on the screen, and it might be something about using a different part of your brain to speak than you're using to engage with the stuff on screen, because you tend to look when you're typing unless you're very good. But I was finding it quite powerful, and then I moved somewhere that didn't dictate, but it might be interesting to try again.
Yeah, so potential tools for that. Dragon is a good one, well known in terms of the way that, so Dragon and Nuance, they're probably the market leader in terms of the way that they do it, but quite high initial cost because it does quite a lot to use their packet. Dictate.it.live is a really simple system that just uses your smartphone. It's still GDPR compliant and stuff, but can work quite effectively, and that's on an individual clinician basis and works quite well. I've done a Tip Thursday video, so feel free to have a look at that if you're interested. Speech notes is a good one for non-clinical stuff, I'd say. Works quite well through your browser as well, so you may not need any additional stuff apart from a microphone and things. I put wiki sites, websites and blogs and that kind of stuff. These can be a really good way of collating all your information. So I mentioned earlier that the reason I created the GP Learning website was to have somewhere to keep all my resources. Well, actually, there's nothing to say you can't do this yourself. A lot of these website tool creators in particular, so things like WordPress and Wix, are really easy to use. As a group of people, can be a great way of sharing information across each other and stuff. And lastly, if you're looking for a really slick way of trying to automate all these kind of tools, things like If This Then That or Zapier are really good platforms that allow you to connect all the different things together. It does require a little bit of time to set it up, but once it's set up, it can save you quite a lot of time. So for example, you can set it to have a tweet that you've hashtagged yourself to automatically go into your cloud storage software like Google Drive or iCloud or that kind of stuff and send it across directly. So that's a simple little thing that you can set up, and it doesn't take long to do.
Yeah, and it's a really powerful tool, very easy to use. Other examples might be if you email yourself a document with and you put a hashtag CPD in the subject line, then automatically save those documents to this folder on my Google Drive and things like that. It can be it's really powerful. All sorts of things you can do.
Or more practically, you can set it up to let your wife know that you're on your way home from leaving the practice area.
Yeah, when you leave geofence area here, then switch on the hot tub at home kind of things.
Yeah,
if you've got
smart homes being a bigger thing. That I think this is something that potentially may have further use and stuff. But obviously, so I know some people will be slightly concerned about the security at times, but it does look quite good and sensible and stuff. So I'm going to summarise. I think for me, the key things I would take home as a tech kind of tool in terms of enhancing CPD. So use a device and pick a system that works best for you. That's the key thing. Secondly, make sure that you use an e-portfolio that you like to use. Some people seem to have this belief that you have to use particular e-portfolios. That is definitely not the case. There may be areas where they provide that portfolio for free for you, or particularly ones that are favoured by appraisers. However, to be clear, you can use any portfolio you choose to use, but make sure it's one that you like. And yes, to a degree, sometimes it's worth using something that's provided free for you, or that your appraisers are more handy at using because it makes life easier. But that still doesn't mean you can't use the one that you want. Resources. There's loads out there, and clearly, if you're looking for a reference board, eGP Learning.
Yeah, it's a good hub, bringing together multiple apps and ideas. So certainly a good place to start.
And particularly for apps, if you want to check out the Tip Thursday videos that we produce, so bit.ly/Tip Thursday YouTube or YT. Please note that is caps lock sensitive. So have a look on the show notes if you want to have a look at that in more detail. Pick a cloud storage method. I think they're really good at keeping all your kind of stuff in accessible and stuff. So make sure that you can get to it whenever and however you want. And lastly, collaborate, work with other people. You know, they can set up these systems to share information really quickly and effectively, particularly group working and using social media, as per our previous video. It can be quite effective and simple to do.
Excellent.
Any other things you'd like to add on, Sandy?
I think we've been very comprehensive, actually. I'm sure the people might have some comments. Oh gosh, hang on, some comments have been accruing.
Andy,
we've had some comments. So it's JC Melody. She's actually a fan of the podcast.
Hi, JC.
Hi there, JC. Sorry, we started talking to each other a little bit too much there. Let's see. Well, hello. Good afternoon to you. Watching via mobile, tablet, and now PC. So she may have been following us throughout the day, which is fantastic. Yeah. Agrees with the use of emojis to help set the mood. Wow, I wonder if these have all just come all of a sudden, actually, because we were talking about that a while ago. To help set the mood. So that's great. And she's finding it informative not just for clinicians, but for other people as well,
guys.
Which is great. Fantastic. I see. I think maybe she wasn't in a position to comment earlier, so she's on a PC. She may have given us some comments. That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Great to hear from you, JC.
Some interaction. So, JC, you just need to tell us how you might use the Rocket Journal, and you would stand a chance of winning, although the competition may be tough.
Yeah, we'll see. So, guys, we hope that this has helped to improve your methods of using technology to improve your CPD collection and stuff, and moved you up this kind of ladder. Normally we would want to ask kind of how you guys are doing, but I'm mindful of time. We've only got 2 minutes left, so feel free to put that in the comments. And obviously the comments are, something that we can access later down the line. Andy and myself will be reviewing those on a weekly basis just to reply and stuff, and more frequently if we can than that. So let us know what you're getting on with. As Andy said, if you want to get your chance to get a hold of the Rocketbook Wave that we've got here to do that, tell us, what you would want to use it for effectively and things, and we'll send it out to you guys, whoever wins it from there. As I said, Andy's the judge of this, not me. So
so try and impress me. There may be things that impress me that don't. Just see. I'm very curious to see what comes up.
And guys, if you want to contact us offline, in another way, then obviously there's our contact details. So the best way is probably on Twitter at Dr. Gandalf for me. At Dr. Gandalf 52 for me,
and at Dr. A.W. Foster for me.
Cool. And lastly, if you want your certificate of engagement and you've not joined us through the HTN Digital Week platform itself, because through that method you will be sent one directly, then feel free to go to this link. It's a sign-up page, and once you signed up, shortly afterwards you'll get your certificate, a way to get your certificate either for this one or for the other webinars if you've watched those as well. So feel free to contact us, and then you'll be able to get your certificate of engagement that you can then upload to your e-portfolio as we've been talking about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Gandhi, thanks for all your hard work preparing and
you too, Andy,
working hard on this. I've had fun doing this, and people can rewatch online if they feel they've missed anything either with this session or earlier in the day.
Definitely, guys. And obviously, if you want to contact us, like we said, all our contact details are there. We also have all of the links about the various different things we've been talking about in the show notes, so feel free to check those out. And also, if you want to support us, feel free to have a look up there. We do have our Patreon page that we use as well. And in terms of if you wanted the opportunity to involve yourself more in the podcast, or get one of these cool little VR glasses that we have. So there are a limited supply of these kind of things. We haven't opened it up, but this is a proper VR headset. There's a video on the YouTube channel showing you more about it and stuff. But yeah, we can send this out to you as well, guys. So hope you're enjoying this and our other sessions. Feel free to contact us whenever you want.
And search for us on Podbean. So we're on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes,
Spotify,
EGP Learning, Podblast. So thanks very much. And I guess that's it.
See you later,
Off we go. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.